Welcome back to Capitol View. I'm Roby Brock alongside my co-host David Goins. We're also joined by our distinguished legislative panel for a roundtable discussion. Representative Charlie Collins, from Republican from Fayetteville, Democrat Greg Leding, also a representative from Fayetteville. Gentlemen, welcome both of you to the program. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Let's begin with what was some big news on Friday. House Speaker Davy Carter says he's not going to be a candidate for governor in 2014. I start with you, Representative Leding. Is that a relief to you, or was that something that you wish had gone another direction?
I told Davy this morning that when I heard the news, I was kind of at the same time both disappointed and relieved. I do think he would have been a formidable candidate. Obviously, a member of the Democratic Party and would have supported our candidate, but I really think Speaker Carter was a capable leader during this session. I think he's got a very moderate view that I think is important, and it would have been interesting to see him run.
Representative Collins, would you have supported Speaker Carter if he'd gotten in that governor's race?
Well, Davey and I are very good friends, and I think he's an excellent leader. He's an outstanding Republican and conservative. In terms of how that support would have gone, I'm always going to support Davey, but I'm also always going to support the Republican nominee. I'm excited about the candidates that we do have in the race. I think we've got 3 strong conservatives, but I'm just going to be forever grateful to Davey for his great leadership here in the House this past session and for the friendship that I've been able to build with him.
So Representative Collins, I take it maybe you're happy you don't have to make that decision, or you just don't have to worry about, should I pick Davey or not, now that that's not there?
Yeah, I think Davey obviously would be a fantastic governor in my view, and I think the other candidates that we've got, one of them will make a fantastic governor. So I'm excited about the field that we've got, and I look forward to building my relationship with Davy Carter too over the future. He's still a young man, and who knows what else is going to be in his future.
And last quick one on Carter before we move on to other stuff. He did say he had some support from Democrats, but Greg, you're saying you wouldn't be one of those that would?
I wasn't one of them. I would have liked to have seen him run, but obviously, just like Charlie's going to support the Republican nominee, I'll be supporting the Democratic nominee.
Okay, and also on Friday, the session wrapped up. Sine die is what the Latin term for?
About time.
About time. go home, essentially, is what it is. Not a lot happened on Friday, but just kind of your takeaway now that we've had about 3 or 4 weeks since the session went into neutral here. Just your thoughts from just overall.
Well, I think it was a fantastic session for the people of Arkansas. I moved to the state about 20 years ago, and one of the things that I've heard people say here is thank God for Mississippi, otherwise we would be 50th. When it comes to rankings and important things like college graduation and median incomes. And I think in this session there were several big things that changed in terms of policy in Arkansas, and I think they're actually moving us into a position of being in the lead, in the vanguard nationally for solving problems that we have in the United States. I think some of the social policy changes we made are great for the people of Arkansas. I think the private option is going to put us in position to actually replace Obamacare over time. It's going to put us in position to bend the cost curve. I see a day when those kinds of cost reforms are saving the nation $1 trillion per year on the deficit.
Private option, social issues, which one, Representative Leding?
I think if you're an attorney, it was a fantastic session because we certainly created a number of jobs for attorneys. We saw just today, Judge Susan Weber Wright issued an injunction on one of those bans. I think we're going to see more of that. I think it was a very difficult session for women in particular. We did end on a high note. I think the private option was a fantastic thing that we were able to get accomplished. I give leaders on the other side a lot of credit for forging that path, because regular Medicaid expansion probably would not have happened had we not had that flexibility and been able to go down that road. So we did end on a high note. We did eventually turn the page and started focusing on jobs, education, and healthcare after spending the first 6 weeks bogged down with social issues that, when you look at what's happened nationally, particularly in the last election, and just opinions on some of these issues, I actually think Arkansas is headed in the opposite direction. So I think this is maybe just a temporary blip. It was a result of Republicans being in control for the first time in 138 years.
Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll come back with our political roundtable. Representative Charlie Collins, Representative Greg Leding, Republican and Democrat from Fayetteville. I'm Roby Brock alongside David Goins. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning on KARK.
One of the real advantages of electric cooperatives membership is having a voice in our state's energy future.
Not a week goes by without important energy issues making headlines. These are issues that need to be discussed. And you should know that as policies are being developed, the cooperatives are looking out for our members, advocating what's best for you.
We are your friends and neighbors.
We are your local electric company.
The electric cooperatives.
We are Arkansas.
And welcome back to Capitol View. I'm David Goins. Alongside Roby Brock, we rejoin our political panel, Representative Greg Leding and Representative Charlie Collins, both from Northwest Arkansas. Good representation from the 3rd District today. Looking back at the session, we've hit on some things. Representative Collins, one of the bills you carried, aside from the tax cuts and so forth, was the carry conceal on college campuses. Made some changes to that, amendments, so the universities would be able to support it or at least not oppose it. Let's take a look at what you told me back, this is almost 3 months ago now, February 11th, about the probability of universities deciding to let guns on or not.
If every university opts out, then we won't see a change on campus. I don't expect that to be the case, and I also believe that over time, more and more will see this as a good idea.
So here we stand. I guess in the last week or two, we've seen some universities, both public and private, make their case, and right now they've all opted out. I mean, is this what you expected?
Yeah, I think it's not surprising that when you introduce a big change, like an aircraft carrier, the ship of state turns slowly and majestically, and that's what we're doing on the concealed carry on college campuses. I expect over time, 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, it'll be very different. Similar, David, to tax cuts. I think this session we made some significant inroads on tax policy, but it's going to take a lot more years to get the Arkansas income tax down where it's competitive with the states around us.
And to your point, as you noted in the law, the Board of Trustees every year are going to have to vote on this. So you think as time goes on, maybe the makeup of trustees change, people's feelings change? And
people get more comfortable with the idea. I think a lot of people think about these issues from the standpoint of a normal person, a law-abiding person, and it just doesn't seem to make as much sense. But when you look at it from the standpoint of how these crazy murderers behave, the law makes a little bit more sense.
Representative Leding, you want to weigh in on that?
I'm not surprised either. We've seen 7 schools take up the decision, and all 7 have decided to opt out. I think that was pretty predictable based on their opposition during the legislative session. When we did make it optional, they didn't decide to support the bill. They just dropped the resistance. And so I think there probably will be a campus that does choose to do it. But I've got the University of Arkansas right in my district. There's still strong opposition there. I don't feel that their concerns for their safety are any less valid than our concerns for their safety.
Let's talk about something else where there was some strong opposition in the session before it all kind of came together. Representative Leding, you were subdued during the legislative session about the private option. You could have been a much more vocal, made more vocal statements about that. After the session, though, we've seen this chatter out in the Twitter sphere, Facebook, everywhere else in social media that basically Republicans passed Obamacare. Is that what Republicans did?
I think whether or not you consider Obamacare is whether or not you voted for it or whether or not you're running for something else. It certainly is a form of Obamacare. Now, I do give credit for putting a conservative spin on it. We absolutely did that. Whether or not it's going to end up being better than regular expansion, I don't know. They both had their strengths and weaknesses, but it was the only path to get 250,000 working Arkansans health insurance. And so even though our caucus was somewhat quiet publicly, there was a lot of debate internally, and we decided it was something we wanted to support.
Representative Collins, is this just Obamacare with Republican elephant ears on it?
No. Actually, the Democrat approach of expanding Medicaid, that was dead on arrival. So what we were left with is a D.C. Obamacare, which is horrific for Arkansas. The plan of Obamacare that's coming from D.C., if we did nothing, is terrible. It costs us $450 million a year in direct and indirect costs more than with the private option. It increases the number of people that are on the actual Medicaid rolls. The private option reduces Medicaid. We're moving away from single-payer government-run insurance. We're moving toward private markets. We're going to bend the cost curve. We're going to figure out how to save the country $1 trillion per decade in deficit spending.
Okay, I'm sure you want to talk about private option as you're sitting on the beach, but in 15 seconds each, y'all, what's the plans for the summer here?
Get caught up on personal obligations back home. I'm getting married in September, so we've got that to plan.
Congratulations.
So, thank you.
Congratulations, Greg, on that.
Thank you.
I've got a daughter who went away to school, and she's going to be back from New York here next month, and I look forward to spending some time with her as well as my other kids.
Well, good deal. Decompress for a little bit. Greg Leding and Charlie Collins, thanks so much for joining us this week on Capitol View. You guys did a great job.